Oh, and we are live on the Icecast Live. Good evening, everybody, and good evening, Sam. How you doing, mate?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Shane. How are you doing?
I'm all right. My eardrums are slightly damaged because your mic is very sensitive, but other than that, I'm pretty.
I haven't got my headphones because they're broken, so there may be some echoey. In fact, so
at the moment we're fine. At the moment we're fine, so let's not worry about it, eh? Until it happens, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. So tonight on the Icecast Live, we have got something very different. Oh, was that Benji?
That was Benji.
Do I need to mute
Get off me, for God's sake!
Well, go away, please. We've just gone live.
I'm gonna end broadcast.
No. Okay.
I'm going to mute you if you don't get him out. Right, guys. So without Sam on the Icecast Live tonight, we've got a very special episode. We're piloting a new show called the Icecast INDY Comics Roundtable, and the purpose of this is to get some really experienced publishers together who know what they're talking about, don't you guys? And we're going to get some advice for you about different subjects over the different episodes. We're going to ask a specific question or talk about a specific subject that is relevant to self-publishing, independent publishing, and we're going to discuss it in depth because some of these questions and discussions don't get enough conversation around them. So this is going to be a little bit more detailed. Sam, you've got an echo there. Your speakers are picking
It's all madness here. I told you it was a madhouse in my house today.
Right. Well, as soon as possible, let's get you off when we get the guests on then, mate. Yeah. So
let's get the guests
on. So let's play the intro, please, Sam, and then we'll bring the guests on. And welcome to the Icecast Live, everybody. Sorry about the chaos there. This does happen sometimes. It's quite a chaotic show at times, but we try and keep it as organised as possible.
I think it's the perfect backdrop to the whole of the conversation, so don't worry.
Yeah, chaos. That sums up indie publishing sometimes, doesn't it? So I have got a couple of early comments I'm just going to share. Never City Media, lots of laughing. I think that was for Benji. Thank you. From Ed Doyle, hi everyone, great to see indie publishers featured on this. Of course, that's a big part of what we do. And Simon Wyatt, I think we all probably know Simon. Evening Simon, nice to see you, mate. So what I'm going to do first is ask each of my guests to introduce themselves because that makes my life a lot easier, but also gives them a chance to talk about what they do. So we'll start as at the beginning, I guess. Mr. Steve Tanner, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Thanks, Shane. So I'm Steve Tanner, and I'm the publisher of Time Bomb Comics. I'm also the editor of Time Bomb and a occasional writer for them. Time Bomb has been going now since 2007. And we started off, it was very, very small, literally just me, and it's kind of got bigger over the years to now we're at the point where we've got a team of people. And I'm not really sure anymore what we're classed as, whether we're classed as small press, whether we're indie, whether we're mainstream. I have really no idea. We're known for kind of producing anthology titles for the main that seem to have a decent kind of following. I guess most recently was probably the Flintlock series, which I wrote, which was all set in the 18th century. We also produce an occasional anthology called Brawler, which that has found a nice audience. And the Kickstarter for the third one that launches tomorrow, so that's a quick plug there. So I thought I'd get that in. We've also kind of in recent years we've moved over into things like licensed titles. So we do a comic called Spectrum, which features new stories set within the world of Jerry Anderson. So that's a fun thing to do. And in about 3 weeks' time, we're launching a new bi-monthly title called Quantum, which is going to be in newsagents, aimed at newsagents rather than the comic shops. And he's trying to capture that audience, which used to be where everyone used to buy their comics. I'm sure Simon and Ben for sure will remember when they were in their younger days. That's the only place you could buy new comics from in Britain. So we're trying to capture that with Quantum. So so very, very busy, lots of things happening. But it's great to be part of the British indie comic circuit. It really is.
And you've been there for a while, mate. And congratulations on all those cool titles that you put, and getting into newsagents. I mean, I'm the same. I know it's unbelievable. Well, I am old enough to remember when the newsagents was the main source of comics. And it's great to see stuff back in the newsagents. If it's available, I'll always go and buy it. It's like a novelty, I guess. Before we move on, I've got a couple of little comments to share. From Hal Laren, you could form a band. Yes, yeah, good. Who does anyone play any instruments? No. Does anyone play any instruments?
No. I can sing really badly. Okay.
So it's a quintet then, a vocal quintet.
I could hit 2 comics together. There you go. That's what I can do.
Can we join your band, Shane?
Well, you could, I guess. Yeah, you could be the backing singers. There you go. Dave Healy, evening all. Evening, Dave. Nice to see you. Glass City Comics, evening all. What a motley crew on tonight.
Thanks, David.
Well, thank you for that. Awesome stuff, Mr. Tanner. That's from Hal Laren. And Simon Wyatt, loved the thrill of discovering a new title in newsagents. Yeah, it's always fun, isn't it? I do miss those days. So next for introductions, Mr. Simon Birks, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Okay, and I just wanted to say, obviously, what Time Bomb is known for now. You're just a legend, Steve. So don't worry. That's all you need.
Simon.
Okay, legend. So yeah, we're Blue Fox Comics. I've been going since 2015. We initially published stuff written by me, but now we publish other people's stuff as well, which is very nice. We do lots of Kickstarters. I think we're on our 53rd one at the moment, which is currently funded. And yeah, based in Bonnie, Scotland. And yeah, I don't know. That's what we do, and very enjoyable it is too.
Oh, that's nice. And you're very modest because you that was a very quick intro there, but you actually have done a lot of stuff. I've looked at your publications and a lot of titles over time, and I did pick up your last Kickstarter. I ordered a few comics and incredibly impressed by the quality of what you're putting out. To be honest, it's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much. But yeah, it's lovely. We have great comics. People. Good stuff being sent through, which is lovely. It's one of the reasons, the fact that anyway, we'll get onto it. You carry on.
And Barbra Dillon, thank you for coming on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself, please, to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shane. Hi, everyone. My name is Barbra Dillon. I am the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Fanbase Press. We are an Eisner Award nominated publishing company as well as a geek media organization as well. We've been around for 13 years, and we try to accommodate publishing that reaches all age groups, all different interests and genres, and we also like to, in addition to, of course, promoting those creators who publish through our company, we love supporting other creators outside of our world as well. And we do so through daily reviews, interviews, podcasts, which you can see on the screen there. So we have a whole media organization as well through which we promote creators. But that's our biggest thing. We love celebrating fandoms and we love creating new ones as well.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I mean, I must admit, it was Simon that introduced me to your work, Barbara. So I'm new to it, and going onto your site, it was really great to sort of discover this whole new world of independent comics that I didn't know was out there. So, thanks for that, Simon.
Yes, thank you, Simon, and nice to meet everyone.
Likewise. Okay, last but definitely not least, Mr. Ben Cullis, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Shane. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to be with these lovely people. I'm a huge fan of Steve Tanner's work. He knows that. I go and gush at him every time I see him in some large convention. I'll see you soon, Steve, no doubt, as the year
You
opens
definitely
up.
will.
So my story is that I trained as an animator and worked in various animation media for a few years, and had a 25-year hiatus between producing comics back in the late 80s and early 90s, and now starting the 77 publications just around 2019 into 2020 when COVID hit. We wanted to produce a comic for a convention that we're linked with, Lawless Celebration of British Comics, which we now sponsor. And obviously the convention got cancelled, and we were left thinking, what are we going to do now with this thing that was just going to be launched at a convention? And that was number one, and it morphed into a continuing strip of anthology, or a series of anthology comics. We're number 9 launched a couple of weeks ago, and it's been an absolute pleasure to kind of work with new breaking talent. Aid Hughes and Ian Stopforth. Andrew Sawyers is just everywhere at the moment. I see him in all the publications, and he started with us. And there's some generational stuff. So Pete Weston, Pete is Mike Weston's son, and worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, key animator, got a BAFTA. Well, he does cartoons and stuff for us, so it's kind of like we reach all sorts of different age groups and what have you. This is Ben McLeod's cover. It came out on February the 17th, I think it was. That was the day that Meatloaf died.
Oh, wow.
In the issue before, he had a photo reference strip, or a couple of issues before, using Sean Connery. It was released the day Sean Connery died. So all I'm saying is, don't get a portrait done by Ben. That's all. Just don't get a portrait done by Ben.
Definitely not.
Turn my camera off now.
Absolutely. And we've launched other titles such as Blazer with Steve McManus. This is Rupert Lewis Jones, who is a Disney animator. This is a wraparound cover he did for one of our strips. Red by Night, Black by Day, written by Joe Healy. So there's 4 or 5 of us involved in the production side of these comics. And I work with Steve McManus, working with John Wagner at the moment, releasing The Bogeyman. And we've just done a deal. We'll be working with Ian Gibson to release Lifeboat. So we've gone on and produced other comic books of our own. So Pandora. This comic is Haunted, which is kickstarting at the moment. So a big hi to Dave Healy, who called in earlier. And it's just kind of gone a bit mad, really. But there's 5 of us. Well, there's 5 of us who have established a really good working relationship as a team. So this is the Kickstarter. I think someone said we've raised, I think in dollars, we've raised $250,000 through Kickstarter the last 3 years.
That's pretty good.
We spend every penny. It's not for profit. So that's a Paul McCaffrey cover.
It's a lovely cover.
It's really retro in its feel, really great. Paul was only happy to. That's Lee Milmore, who won the Art Stars for 2000 AD this year.
Yes.
And that's a strip he's doing with Alan Hebden. Hi, Lara. Yeah, Hal's done quite a few covers for us as well. And that's Ian Stopford's work there. So Ian does A2 oil paintings, collage on board. And he's just the sweetest guy you've ever met. Really, really talented, and doesn't know it. Well, hopefully he's starting to understand that
Hopefully,
now.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I took him to LICAF and to Thought Bubble, and there was just queues of people wanting to see his work and meet up with him. It's just such a pleasure to when you
that's nice.
Work with these people. I mean, I'm just an editor and a publisher, so an occasional writer, but the real talent are those who contribute to us. And it's just fabulous to be part of something where you realize, we're just working with some great people. And I think comics is just a great thing to be working on. So it's a pleasure to be here. Sorry if I've waffled on a bit there.
That's all right. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Ben. Thank you very much. That's a really good intro. And I agree. As a publisher myself, I'm not going to plug what we do. I'm doing enough of that every week. But it's an absolute pleasure when you're working with really talented people like that. It's the best, isn't it? Totally. So the question this week, is it a question or is it a subject? I don't know. That I want to pose to each of you guys, which is, I think, a really important one, is why self-publish, or is self-publishing the best route? And the way I've approached this is to sort of ask you really how you assessed what your goals were early on when you first started self-publishing. did you ask these questions? Did you say to yourself, is this right for me? What should I be doing first? What are my aims? What do I want to achieve, really? Because I think a lot of self-publishers go into self-publishing or just creating comics in general because they just love comics. I want to do comics. But then it's like, well, what do you actually want to achieve from it other than like just the love of what you're doing? And if that is all it is, if it's just a hobby and you just want to do what you love, that's fine. If your aim is not to make any money and just to do something you love, that's fantastic. Go ahead, Or is your aim to make it a business? Is it a side business? Is it going to be your main income? And creatively as well, what are your aims? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to create lots and lots of titles like what Simon's doing now? Or do you just want to work on one title and make that your thing and sort of do a Dave Sim, if you like, and just publish one title forever and make lots of, and make a living out of that? So first of all, Steve, I'll come to you. That seems to be the logical way to go, and ask you what your original sort of aims were and sort of where you are now when you look back at those original aims.
Okay. Well, the way I came into kind of publishing my own comics was probably very similar to people have done before and certainly since, is being inspired by others. So I mean, I think I know I've told you this before, Shane, but I went to a convention in Birmingham in 2006. And it's the first time I'd been to a convention for many, many years, since the early 90s. And at this convention, there were loads of guys that were selling the comics which they created themselves in indie books. But they seemed very different from how I remembered indie books being in the early 90s. In the early 90s, it was very obvious if something was British indie. Simply because what it looked like, how it felt, the production values, and to a lot of extent the content. But in 2006, there seemed to be all these indie books. They could sit alongside anything that would arrive from Diamond in the comic shop every week. They could sit on the shelves quite proudly, and they could compete with them quite equally. So I spoke to the creators who produced those books at that event. I came away with just an armful of indie books. I think I must have bought something from every single indie creator that was there. But I also came away, I have to speak with a determination that I would come back to the next show 1 year later and have my own comic and be sat behind the table selling it. And that's what I did. So it was seeing what others were doing and thinking, wow, this is great. I need to be a part of this. But actually then making sure everything was put into motion for that to happen. And I think since then, I think other people have taken similar routes where they've been to shows, they've been to conventions, they've seen what is being produced by British creators. There's a huge amount of stuff being produced. It's wonderful. And then deciding to do it themselves. And that's been terrific. But I think one of the other things as well, which kind of, there's a word which is not very familiar in the UK. Barbara might be aware of it. I believe it's a Yiddish word, or it's called chutzpah. And basically, the best way to describe it is, chutzpah is having a bit of bravery, a bit of cheek, and a bit of balls to actually get something done. If you have chutzpah, you will get something done. Right. So I think everyone that's involved in comics, no matter what level they are, will have chutzpah, because it might not necessarily be lots of sales. It might not necessarily be, something which appeals to everybody. But the fact that they've pulled something together and they've done it, there it is.
Thank you, Sam.
That's I think that's a really important factor in deciding if it's right for you and if it's a route you need to go down.
Yeah. So basically then, Steve, to summarize, your aims were driven by inspiration, and you just wanted to produce a high quality comic that was you wanted to produce something that was something you could compare to what was on the shelves,
to a point. And also being probably a little bit selfish, because thinking about what I wanted to do, it was kind of stuff which I thought, which if I was a reader, I would like to see as well. So it was going for that kind of route as well. So one of the things with Time, certainly for the first kind of eight years or so it was publishing. We never did an issue 2 of anything. Everything was like a done in one. Everything was a one shot. And part of the thinking behind that was right from the start was that if something is just a single self-contained book or issue, it never becomes a back issue. So it's never out of date.
Yeah.
So we could continually kind of market those books as being new comics. So the thinking behind it was a big part of that, and it was key for me that the production values were really on point. Now, the first comic I produced, obviously at the time I thought it was the Cat's Pajamas, but really it was a load of pants. It was awful, but it was printed lovely. The printing was beautiful. Yeah. I'm still really proud of the production values of that comic. The inside of it, no, because it's a learning experience. But one of the things that since then we've always done, every book we put out has had that consistency of production value, and I think that's really important as well, because it's important that the people when they're looking at the comics, whether it's in a shop or whether it's a convention, that they're picking up something which they feel is credible, and has value and has worth. So a lot of that came into the thinking of what I was doing, but also, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I had no idea if it would succeed or if it would fail. I just wanted to give it a go, because I think noble failure is much better than actually not making any attempt to do something at all.
I completely agree, Steve. I completely agree. And would you say? Go on.
Even the name Time Bomb comes from that initial kind of, not really sure if it would work. Because that first comic, it was a story about time, and I didn't know if it would bomb or not. So that's where Time Bomb came from.
Is that where it came from? I like that.
Yeah, that's where it came from. So it was that kind of initial trepidation, and but at the same time, I'd say to anybody, give it a go, because if you don't give it a go and you want to do it, you'll always be wondering what if. You never want to be that person.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And so would you say then, Steve, that you learned from a lot of mistakes along the way? And are there any mistakes that you made that you think, that you could pass on to the viewers?
I mean, the big one is that the first comic I produced was lettered with Comic Sans. That'd be probably the biggest mistake, and the one I would never ever recommend to anybody. So very early on, I learned the value of lettering. And how important lettering is, to the point that ever since those first couple of titles, we've always, where we can, we list the creators on the covers of the books. We always include the letterer as part of that. A lot of the time is you see the writer and you see the artist. Maybe you'll have the color artist there as well, but we'd always put the letterer on there, because that's a really important part of the process. So I think the other thing as well is that I always kind of always knew what I didn't want to do was kind of hit it like a sprint, treat it like a marathon instead. So I was never one for kind of launching multiple titles and never-ending series. So to me, it was starting small was a really important kind of thing to do, because you could concentrate and then ironing out all the little wrinkles and slowly build something up. I mean, over the years, it's been interesting for me to see how the audience has developed. And I think part of the learning experience is actually releasing titles, realizing some of them are not what the audience wants, or not what the audience expects from Time Bomb, and then actually making sure that the stuff you're producing, the stuff you're kind of planning, does tie in with that expectation of the brand. So those are the key learnings. But I think the thing that's really important for anybody, and I'm sure Simon and Ben and probably yourself as well, Barbara, would agree with me on this one. There is a huge amount of support from other creators and other people that are doing it within the community. A huge amount. So there's this invaluable free resource of guidance and advice if you need it. When I came in, so many people were kind of helpful and supportive of what I was doing, and over the years, it's been great to try and be supportive to other people who are coming in or established as well. So take advice, take guidance from people that are already doing it. Never be afraid to ask, because the community will happily support you if you support the community.
So would you say then, Steve, that one of your initial aims, like listening to your story there, was to achieve a certain sales point? You know, there was a commercial aim with your books from the start?
Initially, no. Initially, it was just wanting to be able to actually produce something and actually be able to say, yeah, I've done this. And if it hadn't worked, then fair enough, I'd have moved on. But within a couple of years, it was kind of, I could see that sales were building, but it was still very much, I was still cautious. And I think certainly for the first 5-6 years or so, I was very cautious about what we were producing and how frequent we would produce things, because it was really important to kind of to build that audience and not kind of overstretch, because, you know, since I've kind of started publishing, there's been a lot of kind of indie companies in the UK that have come in and they've crashed and they've burned because they've tried to do too much too quickly, without kind of building that kind of fan base, building that audience, and actually understanding how these things all fit together. You know, probably about 2014, 2015, where suddenly they had the realization that, oh yes, this is actually now self-sufficient, and now I can build in it from there. So since then, it's really kind of you know, accelerated. But that's only because the foundations were already there and they were already strong, because that's really important, because you need those foundations to kind of to carry on building. Yeah.
And would you say now that, looking back, when you set those sort of aims for yourself, do you think you've achieved most of them, or is it still a work in progress?
I mean, in many ways, I've achieved much more than I ever thought I would achieve. Writing Captain Scarlet, that's an amazing kind of thing for me to say I've done. But then to kind of publish licensed stuff, to get stuff into newsstands, because I mean, I mentioned Quantum, but you know, we got Spectrum was in Dibbit Smiths last year, and before that we did the Brawler special with in association with the Shift, which was also in the newsstand. So seeing that happen was great. But what's been terrific is, again, I think Ben touched on it earlier, was actually working with creative people, working with new writers and new artists, and seeing them grow and seeing them develop, to the point where, you know, I'm reaching out to them and seeing if they're interested in working with Time Bomb. A perfect example of that is Mike Walters, who won the Thought Bubble 2000 AD art competition the year just gone in November. Now, I first met Mike at a convention, a Manchester convention. I think it was 2015, 2016, and he was actually next to me at his table, and it was the first time he'd ever done a show. And it was a weekend show, and on the Saturday, whether it was because he was nervous or the type of show, but he wasn't getting as much interest as he should have gotten. So at the end of the Saturday, when we were kind of closing down, he mentioned that he wasn't going to be coming back on the Sunday because he thought he didn't really, didn't think it was worthwhile. So I remember sitting down with him, having a 20-minute conversation with him about why he should not decide not to, why he should be back at the table and make sure he was there to the end of the Sunday. And he did. And on the Sunday, he had a really good day. And look where he is now. So, he kept at it. He kept at it. He developed his artwork. I think what he's doing now is wonderful. And hopefully at some point he'll be able to do some work for us. But it's that kind of thing. Don't be disheartened. Just keep at it. Build. We all get knockbacks. Myself, Ben, Simon, we all would have done conventions where we at the end of the day we thought, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
We've all done those.
There was one quite recently, Simon, I think. But hang in there, do it. Have faith in what you're doing as well.
Bit of perseverance, definitely. Okay, thanks for that, Steve. Does anybody in the panel have any questions for Steve at all? Silence. Tumbleweed.
Who's distributing your Quantum, Steve?
We've got the distributors who we're not using Diamond for Quantum. We're actually using a company called Market Force, who distribute SFX and Total Film and that kind of stuff.
Excellent. That's a good little tip there. Okay. Sorry, excuse me, guys. So next up, Simon. Same question to you, really. What were your early aims? How did you achieve them? And do you think you have achieved them?
Well, 4-year-old Simon had a saying, and it was "by my own." And I think this is where a lot of this has come from. I think before we started doing the comics, so say 2014, 2015, we were doing I was doing other plays and films and even little TV series we filmed, and it is my natural way. If I look at something and I think, well, can I do that? And if I can do, and if the answer is yes, or if I arrogantly think yes, I think I can, I'll just go and I'll give it a go. And I had a lot of short film scripts sitting on a hard drive doing nothing, and I thought, okay, it's going to cost me money to make the short film, so let's basically turn them into comics. Because I don't know when I had that thought, or what thunderbolt struck me, but yeah, so yeah, we wandered around. I think probably much like Steve did, but in 2014, some comic conventions. These are the first ones I'd been to with Marielle, and yeah, we were very buoyed by the quality of the stuff out there. I'm sure probably Steve was at that one, probably, and yeah, and just looked at it. I thought, yeah. Just really liked it, and I was developing one of the short films into a comic. Yeah, I just went from there, really. Yeah, and it's good. It's nice as well because we can. Another thing you can do, obviously, you have more editorial control of your books as well. Obviously, if you're doing them,
Yes.
in a nice way. There is a bit. I'm not really a controlling type of person, but there is that sort of thing. I write a certain way, and at least this meant that I was definitely going to get my stuff out there. On the screen now is current Kickstarter. So this is. Latest one. We live in Scotland, obviously. I moved up from England, and Scotland has been very good to us. So one of the things I wanted to do is give something back. So we had I wrote a story, a Scottish Gothic horror story, and it's available in English, but it's also available in Scots and Old Scots as well. Been translated by Dr. Michael Dempster. Yeah. So and it's done well, and it's on Kickstarter now. So there you go. So, but we have one of these every month now.
Yeah,
I'm sure my hair didn't used to be this color, but now I do a Kickstarter every month. But yeah, and it's obviously Kickstarter is the tool which has allowed me to do this, and I'm sure many others as well.
I mean, yeah. I think it's brilliant, Kickstarter, and there are others as well. But I think we'll have to do a roundtable just on that at some point. That's its own subject altogether. Crowdfunding. It's a huge part of publishing for a lot of people, I think. And it works for some people, and it doesn't work for others. But I think for a lot of people, it is a good way forward. And it's obviously definitely worked for you. And at some point, I'll try and understand how you manage to do a Kickstarter every month. It's
my
so
relaxed nature. That's what it is.
Yeah,
yeah, right.
You don't worry about it. Yeah?
That's right. Yeah, just let it go. Sorry, other notes that I had here. I mean, the other good thing about why doing your own one, it was again a good way to start in the industry. It's one of the things I'll say to people these comics that we create, he says, reaching down. So these sort of comics that we create, they're like calling cards. So I'm able to go along as a writer, with an art. When you have an artist go along with reviewing portfolios here, here's a comic. So I'm able to show people that. So I that's one of the good things and one of the reasons for doing this. So it allowed me a foot into this industry. So yeah, which is rather fantastic, really.
Indeed.
Yeah, and also I could do this alongside the full-time job. Unfortunately, I'm very fortunate now to be able to do this full-time with the help of Marielle. And so yeah, but now, but before that, I was able to slowly grow the business whilst having the job. So yeah, that's another good reason why I started doing my own comics. I mean, obviously,
so they were so just going back to your original aims then, the primary aim was to get your stories out there.
Yes.
You know, you'd written all these stories and you wanted a vehicle to get them out.
Yeah.
So that was a primary, but also was it originally an aim to sort of make it your day job?
No,
this something that came along later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe I'm sitting here getting to do this. So so it's amazing, and I'm very happy, and so that's good. And but yeah, and also I'm very fortunate. I've got a book coming out with Image, debuting at San Diego, and this is it. I mean, this is. Without all of this stuff, I couldn't do it. Yeah, living the damn dream. Yeah,
but you had to put a lot of work in to get there, and you had to establish. I would imagine you did have a plan and a path. Once you realised that was something that was achievable.
You don't know me very well, do you? I had no plan. We just kept going. We kept going. It was only really during COVID. That's when I said, okay, well let's see if I can do this. Full time for 3 months or whatever, and then and never look back after that. But I mean, even when I started out, I wasn't envisaging publishing other people even, and that's to say, I think I said before, it's one of the best parts of the job. So it's just
I think that takes a lot of us by surprise. I mean, obviously all of us here have published other people, and when I first started publishing, it was my aim to work with other people, but it wasn't my primary aim. I wanted to work in comics, and as work for hire really was my aim when I was younger. But then when I started working with other people and publishing their work, it was like an addiction. It was like a drug, it was such a great experience, and I quickly changed my plans. We've had a couple of more comments. I'll just read them out. Andy Hayes, evening all. I'm a big supporter of indie comics. I've backed 50 Kickstarters, with issue 2 of This Comic is Haunted being the 50th. I'm going to be checking out Quantum when it hits the newsstands. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Good man. And another comment from Hal. Crowdfunding tells us that indie publishing is beloved. I guess it does. If your crowdfunding is successful, it can also tell you other things. Does anyone have any questions for Simon before I move on? Nice and quiet. Simon breathes a sigh of relief. So, Barbara, next up, what's your take on the subject tonight?
Absolutely. I think what's fascinating anytime that we talk amongst ourselves or we talk with other creators and publishers is there's no one right way to enter comics. I think everyone comes to it from a different path. And I think that's wonderful. And I think that's what makes the comic book industry so fascinating, the content so interesting and ever evolving, is we bring so much different lived experience to it. Myself, as a child, I grew up backstage in the theater. My older brother is an actor and writer, and so that was a lot of my childhood, being around really amazingly talented, creative people. And when I was older, I moved to Los Angeles with the intent of working in the TV and film industry, which I did for a number of years. But what was interesting to me is, so my intent was always to, given my childhood experiences, to help creative people to do what they loved. So my intent was to work in talent management and production, which is what I did. Of course, I became very jaded by the film and TV industry in Hollywood, as many often do. But that was really the impetus to creating Fanbase Press. I knew that there were so many talented people out there, and there are a finite number of jobs at Marvel and DC. But that doesn't mean that the people that don't get those jobs are any less creative, any less talented. They still deserve a platform to share their voice, to share their stories, their characters. And so that's what I wanted to do. My intent was always to publish other creators, to share their voices with people. And so that was the impetus behind it. Interestingly, we were always kind of a strange bird in the industry because we have the dual nature of being both a publisher as well as a media site. When we started out, there was really no one else doing that. Everyone questioned, the ethics of, oh my goodness, can you critique others' work while publishing? And for us, we don't see it as a competition. We're not here to tear down creators. We're not, most of our reviews, they may have some constructive criticism, but we're not in the business of posting scathing reviews of people's work. We're here to help people, to get the word out, to interview folks. So for us, it's honestly been kind of a boon for us doing the dual nature, because we've met so many people, we've formed so many relationships and met so many people over the years, and we're grateful to have that opportunity. I will say, just to give a shout out to Josh Blaylock, when we were getting started, we very much, like Steve said, we didn't know what we were doing. I think we read How to Self-Publish Comics by Josh cover to cover about 1,000 times. We took it as law. We were like, well, this is the only way to self-publish comics. And so we did everything that it told us to do. But I think the important thing for your viewers and listeners to know is, for me, there's no one right way to publish or make comics. There are so many great resources out there that there haven't been in the past. So things like crowdfunding or just digital comics, or the many platforms and resources out there, everybody can self-publish comics now, which is a really wonderful thing. Yes, there it is. How to self-publish. I've read that cover to cover so many times. But there's no one right way to do it. And don't let anyone tell you that there is. I've sat on so many panels over the years where creators will say, you have to make it this way, or you have to tell this kind of story this way. And it's just not true. I think when you allow folks to tell their story in a method or a means that is their own, I think every time someone breaks the mold, it's very exciting. It's very new, and everyone tries to then do it that way as well. So I would just, tell folks, number one, do it your way. Tell your story how you want to tell it. Of course, you can always learn more. You're always going to make mistakes, and be open to learning more, be open to growing and learning from those experiences. But yeah, it is such a lovely community. I would imagine overseas where you are, and here in the States, it's such a welcoming, helpful, supportive community. Comics won't make you millions of dollars. If they do, hats off to you. But I think that's why everyone is so helpful and supportive in this industry. We're doing it because we love it, and we're doing it because we have these stories to tell.
Yeah. And when you talk about mistakes there, is there a mistake that you remember that you learned a lot from that you could share with the viewers?
That's a great question. I don't look back on our years with regret on anything, honestly. Certainly, hindsight is 20/20, and there were things we would do differently now that we've learned. But I think that everything is an evolution, and because we didn't know, or there's still, anyone that knows exactly what they're doing, again, hats off to you, because wow, what an amazing position that would be.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does, do they, really?
Exactly. But honestly, I think that always try new things, always be open to try new things and try things differently. But yeah, I definitely can't say that we look back on anything negatively or regretfully. And had we not tried things, it may not have led us on the path that we're on now. So yeah, I think that it's great to just try as much as you can.
Thank you. That's a nice little segue there. Thanks, Sam. I've just got one more comment before I move on. From James Gray. Good evening, all. Sorry, I'll get back to work. Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks for that, Barbara. That was great. Ben, last but not least, could I have your take, please, on the subject tonight?
So we kind of really took an opportunity. As I said, we thought we'd lost an opportunity to launch a comic at a convention in the spring of 2020 when the lockdown first came into place. But we were in communication we run some quite large Facebook groups, fan-based groups and creator-based groups. And we'd had so many people coming to us saying, oh, we'd love to get involved. We want to be published. So we kind of went, okay, number one was out. It wasn't fully formed. It wasn't something that we'd really honed. And we knew we had a live project, which was self-funding. it astonished everybody how much money it made. But this was at the time when there was nothing else happening. It was like for 4 months in the spring through to summer of 2020, I felt like we were talking in very quiet, respectful space. We didn't have to shout. It was just, if you were doing something and if you were putting stuff out on WordPress and if you had some socials, it seemed to be that everybody was back in touch with us. So we were immensely fortunate that we were in that position. But I'll say that thing that without the team behind me, Dave, Steve and Joe and Brendan, I don't think we would have accomplished half of what we've done. So we work very much as a team, and each member of the team has their own project now. So Dave has got this comic as Haunted. He's an editor of that. I group edit, but he's got his own reins in terms of getting his own talent and working with people. Steve does the annual and is doing the Ian Gibson book. Joe's got Pandora. That's slightly on a hiatus at the moment because she's very busy professionally, but she's writing a lot of strips for the comics we do. So what we try and do is we try and work where we own or have maintained 50% of the IP with a creator. If we're not an artist, we're doing the writing of it. And then we'll talk with them about this development later. So what we'll be looking to do is we'll be looking to collect series, our long-standing series, and republish those at some future date. So the 77 as such has been paginated to issue 12, and it's going to change in essence round about then. Okay, so we're issue 9 at the moment. We are because we were in COVID, we really developed our media online. So actually we sell more comics digitally than we do in physical form from our shop, although our shop on Big Cartel is quite successful.
Oh, right. That's quite unusual, isn't it?
So there we go. Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. The number 9 digital edition there. I've sold more of those. And they are, the thing about this, Shane, is because we're Kickstarter launched, I'm sure you're aware, and other people who launch Kickstarter aware that Brexit has really hit us publishers. You know, where you get people having to buy a physical copy in Europe, and it costs them £6 postage plus a £7 tariff and a surcharge, whereas actually it's quite cheap to send them to the States. Ironically, for us to send stuff to the States, it's not much at all, but it costs nothing to send Tels Digital. So every one of ours. So if you see here, we've got Planet Comics. So that's Antarctic Press, Joe and Ben Gunn done. So that basically came out. That's our material going through Antarctic Press. We were very, very pleased to get that deal. And by the way, I need to, he'll be mentioning himself in a moment. That's a Hal Laren cover. And Hal is he's only mentioned it twice. And what we try and do is we make sure that we stream through various sites. So Comic House, all of the digital ones, all those agencies who provide, space for your comics to go. So, we make sure it's available on as media as possible. And we're always looking to try and see how we can kind of further the material in terms of getting it out to people. Yeah. So this is the cover from number 1, Haunted. It's just, I trust the people I work with, and it's important that I don't over edit. I'm dealing with adults. I've been in education and I've taught design for 20 years in the hiatus period between being an animator and doing this now. And I pretty much do this full time. But what I don't do is I don't want to micromanage people. If we make a mistake, it's an artistic endeavor and we will learn from it. And I don't want to change people's voices. I think it's really important. You can be heavy-handed. And there's been instances where I may have said the wrong thing, which you gave the wrong message at the wrong time. So I now basically check with the other guys first and just say, hey, if I'm going to make this announcement or do something, just vet it first. Yeah. The thing is, it's very close to my heart, all of this. And as I move on and we're starting to represent other industry people, because that's where we are. It's not just publishing. You represent their work. Yeah. I think you have to be respectful that, they want to make sure what you're doing and how you're doing it is reflective of their ethics and their standards. So there are some creators, I've got to say, they've not come back to us, whatever reason. There are lots of reasons why people wouldn't necessarily continue a journey. But when we found someone that really strikes a chord with us, and we really get on well with, and we can discuss some of the bigger issues around what we're doing with them, and they respect that as well, and I will back them up 100%. And that's where I am. It's like what Barbara says about, you know, representing talent. Sometimes you're representing the talentless as well, and that can be a bit hard when basically, and that's not a reflection on the Los Angeles acting scene at all, Barbara. But you know, I've worked for sort of pretty high profile media organizations, and the fact is sometimes you really have to smile and bear it, grin and bear it, as they say. But in this field at the moment, I'm just finding that there's so many really genuine people. And I'm going to shout out to Steve again, because Steve has been so supportive of me. When I met him 4 or 5 years ago, the first Thought Bubble I went to, honestly, he didn't know me really from Adam, but I showed an interest and he spent time chatting to me. And whenever and he catches up, we have good phone calls. Don't we, Steve? It's just, I think it's just sometimes being a publisher can sometimes be a bit lonely, can't it? You know?
It can be quite isolating. Yeah, definitely. I think
Feels
so.
like
Going back to your to the beginning, then, Ben, would you say that your original aims were to do what you've done? Did you have a plan to say, I want to publish lots of different people, I want to publish multiple titles?
That's why if people are new to us and they pick up a copy of any of our comics, you'll find very quickly flicking through it, it's by a lot of different people. They're anthology anthology comics. Now, we have done collections and we will continue to do these as we bundle material together. But I always wanted to work with a whole load of people, and that's what I've managed to do. I'm not sure if I wanted to have 4 titles, but I don't personally have 4 titles because, as I said, I publish, but I've got people it's their thing. They're the editor of those things. So we started together on one title, and now we've split it somewhat. And you know, they're great people, and I've got to know them over 6-7 years now, and we trust each other, and we're good mates, you know. And sure, we have our different viewpoints, and sometimes we'll argue quite strongly about what we really believe in, but we always know that basically, you know, we'll come back and we'll chat about it and respect the fact that, you know, that person deserves to be heard, and it's about that respect. So you know, we're all only just kind of coming back into the world again, aren't we? I mean,
it feels like it sometimes.
You know, going out to conventions is a relatively new thing. We went to Lawless last year. I said we sponsored it. We went to Thought Bubble, which was a different event again, but it's like we're just finding our feet again. And I honestly think that some things have changed insofar as there are some new faces around. It's not like we're all saying, oh, you know, we shall inherit the earth or anything like that. But I'm just saying there has been a bit of a seismic change. And as Steve alluded to, some companies have come and some companies have gone. And it's overblown maybe to say it, but I think it's quite exciting at the moment. And there's a lot of people out there who are definitely going, do you know, I can get my work published. I can if I, you know, it used to be, 2000 AD was about it in UK. I'm disrespecting a lot of other published type titles. What I'm saying is ask an aspirational artist, for example, where they wanted to be. 2000 AD. We worked with people who wanted to do that. And if you ask them now, they're saying, actually, it's amongst the titles that I'm buying I want to be working with. The ones who will, you know, and then they know, as we've said, as Simon said, a printed comic, a strip is a calling card. The finished article is a calling card. You don't have to do a pitch. It's already there. If it's on the paper and you got it, and that's it. So hopefully one day I can go to get a chair for 10,000 at San Diego. You know, I've been invited by some people to go, but you know, I don't think I'd be there.
Is that a blue sky aim for you, Ben? I mean, we're talking about aims.
Absolutely.
So, you know, long term, is that what you want to go to? That level?
I've got this kind of thing that I live by. You have to be in the game to be competitive. Now, I'm not saying you continually bring out stuff that no one's interested in or reading or whatever. But we are very responsive with the people who contact us. Andy Hayes, right? He was on your show earlier. Good comment. Andy will comment straight away to me. My comic's 2 weeks late. Where is it, mate? You know, it's like people can contact you straight away, and you get a review instantly. And I'm not saying, well, we're changing out what we do because of that. But what I'm saying is you can be very mindful of it, and you can gauge how well distribution's working, or whether, you know, people are understanding what's happened between strips. So you go, catch up, make sure you put a catch up caption. You know, you've got to put that caption in, just tiny little things. or I don't know. Yeah, and it's an objective of mine.
It's very instant, isn't it? It's very instant now that between the audience and the creators and the publisher, that communication, it's instant. Like you say, you get a comment straight away if something's late. You know,
well,
it's a very different world.
We'll put not just sneak peeks up on our Facebook groups or on WordPress or whatever. You know, we'll be literally like the old NME adverts. Do you remember the old NME adverts would be wanted a drummer, and it was for the Who or something like that. So we put out little shouts saying we're looking for books to publish, and look who's come calling. You know what I mean? It's just incredible. So I'm thinking if that was 4 years for me, what we've done in the 4 years now. If I'm still capable, if we don't go completely, then I think we could have a conversation in 10 years, Shane, and we could still say how great it is. I mean, look, my inspiration is Steve. Okay, 15, 20 years in the game. However, I didn't realize, Simon, that you'd done quite so many. I thought I'd done a lot of Kickstarters. I'm on my 18th Kickstarter. You're on your 52nd. I'm well impressed, mate.
Can you catch up? We'll have to do like a little chart. Who's done the most Kickstarters?
What, a league table?
I know I'll be last.
But I mean, the fact is that I think it's. After this, I'm gonna straight away. I'm emailing Barbara. I'm going to be contacting Simon. You know, me and Steve will have a good old gossip again about something or other. It's a great opportunity. I love your shows. I love the fact that now there's so many more conversational shows that you can watch, listen into, find out who's doing what. When I grew up as a kid, I didn't know what these people did. I didn't know how they did it. You know,
it's great to be so in touch with creators now, isn't it? You know, and there's less of a barrier between creators and fans. Okay, I've got a couple more. Thanks for that, Ben. By the way, that was great. I've got a few more comments, and then there's a little question at the end which I'll put to you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. I think because we're nearly at the end of the hour. So from Simon, the indie community is so supportive, cooperative, and I found everyone celebrate each other's success. Hardly any negativity. It's an organic model that feeds each creator and results in some fantastically original, non-formulaic and unexpected titles being produced. Thanks for all those long words I've had to read out, Simon. It really has its own unique flavor. Anything is possible. Yeah, I agree. I'll go with that. Thanks for that, Simon. Hal, yes, thank you. Ed Doyle, exciting times indeed, Ben. Indie comics is where it's at. Can't really argue with that, can we? Andy Hayes, I apologize for all the moaning, Ben. You're not the only one.
He's one of our biggest supporters. No, I tell you what, he's a star, is Andy.
Yeah, love Andy. Love Andy. So before we wrap up, I've got a little question, and it's aimed at all of you, I think. So we'll quickly go round. So the question is from Chris Ball. How should artists and writers go about contacting you with their work? Steve, can you respond to that one first, please?
Always go to the website, timebombcomics.com. There's a submissions page on there. Follow the submissions guidance. Exactly. Don't deviate from that. I can't stress that enough. And Ben's nodding, so I'm sure he knows what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you've never accepted any of my stuff, Steve.
To submit something in a particular way, in a particular format, that's what you do. Don't think by breaking the rules you'll get noticed. You won't. Yeah. You'll just get deleted.
Yeah, right? I totally with that. Totally with that. I'll say that for for the same as us as well. Submission guidelines are so important for whoever you're submitting to. Follow the guidelines. You know, if they say they don't publish manga, don't send them loads of manga because they're not going to be. Just going to get annoyed that you've ignored them. You know, I'm just saying that for a friend. Simon, what's your response to that question, please, mate?
Yeah, same. Got bluefoxcomics.com. There's a submissions page there, or link there on the front page. Yeah, have a look, read it, and and submit. So
excellent. Sounds really simple, doesn't it, Barbara?
So we're online at fanbasepress.com, but honestly, the best thing to do is to email me. The email is really easy. It's Barbara, which is spelled a little bit differently, BARBRA, at fanbasepress.com. And I'm happy to chat with you about your project. And the big thing with me is even if we can't provide a home for your story, I'm happy to chat with you about what your goals are and help you as best as possible to find a future home for your project.
Oh, that's nice.
I'll put
Sorry,
my hand
go on,
up
sorry.
because
Yeah.
actually Barbara sent the inspectors, which we kickstarted last month, our way, and so thank you very much, Barbara.
You got it. Absolutely.
That's great. That's a great way to operate. I try and do the same myself, to be honest. Because not everything's suitable for what we want to do. But when you know lots of publishers, it doesn't hurt just to send people in the direction of someone you think that work is going to be suitable for. So that's a great way of doing it. Ben, last but not least, what's your
a couple of things. Think about what it is you're strong at doing. If you want to do sequential work, send sequential work. If you want to do covers, send me that, but don't send me a cover for sequential work. It doesn't work like that. Second thing is also realize that sometimes it's not going to happen, and keep on going. We've had people who've been waiting 3 or 4 years, and now they're absolutely they've shown that they've stayed with it, and they're really providing us with the goods now. The 77comic@gmail.com is one of our email addresses. We're big on Facebook. Look for 77 comic and you'll find us, and you can chat to us. So we're all admins on our groups, and we can then say, privately message us or something. The 77 is fully paginated for the next 2 years, so that's why we keep producing new comic titles, because we're wanting to continue to run the strips that we've got. But hey, and if also this is a slight aside, but there's anyone with spare few million quid they want to invest in British comics, contact anybody here, because we will spend that money absolutely no problem.
Very quickly. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, if money was no object, I bet we've all got like dozens of projects that we could just put out tomorrow. Amazing projects. It is frustrating sometimes, isn't it, when that is your one barrier. It's not the talent. There's loads of talent out there. It's not the ideas. It's not the commitment. It's not the hard work. It's just the money. So any millionaires, we're here. We're waiting. So thanks, guys. It's a wrap. We've done it in pretty much an hour. I'm impressed, and you've all given me some great food for thought. Hopefully you've given our viewers some food for thought as well. Thank you to everyone who commented and asked questions. It's really appreciated, because it makes the show even more interesting, because it's not just me asking the questions. So thank you to each and every one of you for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll do this again in the future with a different subject. And we'll look at. I might put a poll out and see what people want to ask about. What the most burning questions are, and then we can discuss them. Obviously, you guys are all welcome back again, but we might have some different faces as well. We'll see how it goes. So, thank you guys. Have yourselves a great evening. It's been a great show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers. Play that.